Hello boys and girls, I am teacher Melinda Hughes, and today I am delighted to do grade 5 social studies with you. Would you sit a while and pay attention as we do the topic weather? We will focus on weather and related activities within our natural regions. Boys and girls, I am sure you have heard the word weather before. And so in this lesson, we will do a recap simply because weather and climate, in addition to that, climate change and weather patterns all have something to do with the activities that are done in our 4 natural regions. Even as we go through, you will identify where the natural regions are as we look at the map of Guyana. And then we will discuss the climate that is experienced in each natural region, other patterns that are related to weather, and the activities that the people in the different natural regions participate in. So let us go through. We will recap what is weather, what is climate change, and weather patterns. For boys and girls, we would have done these in lessons before as we discussed weather and related topics to weather. So let's recap. What is weather? Weather is used to describe the condition of the atmosphere of a particular place over a short period. So that means for a day, a week, or a month. What is climate? Climate is used to describe the average conditions of the atmosphere of a particular place for a long period. And that means for years, for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, and more. What is climate change? Climate change refers to the change of the normal weather patterns around the world over an extended period of time. And weather patterns simply refer to the type of patterns that weather presents. And so what are those? Windy, cloudy, rainy, and sunny. These are the weather patterns that Guyana experiences across its natural regions. So boys and girls, let's identify where the natural regions of Guyana are located and their names. The map of Guyana that you are looking at shows us exactly where each natural region is located. As you look at the map, boys and girls, you will notice that there is a key. And that key gives direction and information based on 1, the name of the natural region, and the color that represents where that natural region can be located. So we have the low coastal plain that is found to the north of Guyana. Next we have the hilly sand and clay region that is located to the south and west of the low coastal plain. The highland region, also known as the Forested Highland, is in that large span of green. Yes, boys and girls, and if you notice, it occupies the majority of Guyana. And finally, we have the interior savannas. That is represented in that yellow patch that is found more specifically to the west of Guyana. Now, boys and girls, there is also a blue patch. And that blue there to the north represents where the Atlantic Ocean is found. So let's get going. We will examine each natural region, the type of climate it experiences, and other patterns that are experienced within that particular natural region. So we will begin with the low coastal plain. The low coastal plain experiences 2 wet and 2 dry seasons. So for the climate, 2 wet and 2 dry seasons. Other patterns. The low coastal plain experiences the cool breezes of the northeastern trade winds. And this happens all year round. So the low coastal plain experiences the cooling breezes of the northeastern trade winds. Next, we will look at the hilly sand and clay region and the type of climate that region experiences. The hilly sand and clay region experiences one dry and one wet season. Other patterns are hot days and cold nights. So that is what happens in the hilly sand and clay region. The Forested Highland Region, also called the Highland Region. The climate that the Forested Highland Region or Highland Region experiences is rainfall all year round. So they have hot, wet climate, meaning that it is hot and wet at the same time. In the Forested Highland Region, they have hotter days and cooler nights. Next, we will look at the interior savannas. The interior savannas experience 6 months of rainfall and 6 months of sunshine. What are the other patterns? Cool throughout the day. Next, we will look at activities that relate to weather in each natural region. Boys and girls, the people in every natural region in Guyana are accustomed to the climatic condition all year around and build their livelihood around it. Boys and girls, what does that mean? It simply means that because the climatic condition that is experienced in the particular natural region, the population there build their livelihood based on that condition. Next, lying near the equator, Guyana has a tropical climate and temperatures do not vary much throughout the year. So this simply means that where Guyana is located, which is near the equator, Guyana experiences a tropical climate. And as a result, the temperatures really don't change much throughout the year or for years. So because of that, the activities remain the same across specific natural regions. Now let us examine the activities that are done in each natural region. So there we have the map of Guyana again, and we will identify the low coastal plain. The low coastal plain is found to the north of Guyana and it is washed by the Atlantic Ocean. In addition to that, the low coastal plain also experiences the cooling breezes of the northeastern trade winds. So let's examine the activities and what happens on the low coastal plain. You would remember that the low coastal plain experiences 2 wet and 2 dry seasons. So what happens in the dry seasons? Farmers have to get water for their crop. What happens then? Because there is an insufficient supply of crops, food becomes short. So in common terms, we say there is food shortage. Irrigational canals have to bring water to the land in the dry season. So that is one activity that is carried out on the low coastal plain. What is it? Farmers need water for their crops, and so they have a system of irrigation where water is drained or pumped from canals into the farmlands so that the crops can have enough water for sustenance and growth during the dry season. Because you know what, boys and girls, during the dry season, it hardly rains. Next, in the wet season, the excess water has to be drained from the land by pumps. So there is a reverse. In the wet season, the water, which is excess, is drained off of the land. But in the dry season, water is pumped into the land. Next, because farming is one of the major economic activities that is done on the low coastal plain, farmers must have a knowledge of the weather. Why is this so? Because they have to know when to sow and when to reap. So a knowledge of the weather will give them sufficient time to sow at the right time, so that their crops can be ripened to be reaped at the right time for the weather condition that is experienced. During the period of the wet season, planting is done. So with a knowledge of the weather, farmers are able to plant during the wet season, and that would be specifically their rice crop. Reaping is done during the dry season. So boys and girls, let's look at some images. You would notice that one image there shows how water is being drained from the land. Yes, that is where excess water that would have been accumulated on the land because of heavy rains, it has to be pumped away or off of the land. Next, if you notice, farmers appear to be enjoying the floods, but that is not the case. What they are doing there is simply sowing paddy, and that happens in the wet. As you would notice in the next picture, there is a rice harvester, which is a combine. And so that machine is used by many farmers to reap or to harvest their paddies. Yes, and that makes reaping quite easy. So boys and girls, those are some of the activities that are done on the low coastal plain. Next, we will examine activities that relate to weather in the hilly sand and clay region. Yes, the map of Guyana is there, and so I want you to identify with me where the hilly sand and clay region is located. And so boys and girls, I am sure you have already identified it, and you probably are saying, yes, that orange color there represents where the hilly sand and clay region can be located. So the hilly sand and clay region is mostly covered in shrub. It has medium height vegetation and hardwood due to the climatic conditions that is experienced there. And may I ask, and I'm going to pretend like I am hearing you, what are the climatic conditions that are experienced in the hilly sand and clay region? Yes, boys and girls, one wet and one dry season. So that type of climatic condition makes it easy for vegetation and hardwood to grow well. Because of that, logging and bauxite mining are done all year round. There is no season for that, and that is because the climatic conditions that are experienced in the hilly sand and clay region just do not prevent that type of activity. So let's look at some images. One, we can see the forest as it is thriving in the hilly sand and clay region. And we also have an illustration of bauxite mining. So those are two of the key activities that are done in the hilly sand and clay region because of the type of climatic conditions that are experienced. Next, let's look at the activities that relate to weather in the Forested Highland Region or the Highland Region. And of course, boys and girls, the Highland Region is the region that is spreading across the map of Guyana in green. Yes, and so in the Forested Highland Region, the heat along with heavy rainfall influences forest growth. And so, the Forested Highland Region is Guyana's forest wealth. Plant life is highly favorable in this type of climate. May I add, forest thrives well in this type of climate, meaning heavy rainfall. So, the activities that are influenced by this type of weather is that logging is done in this region on a large scale. Not only logging, but they also have vast fields of minerals. But of course, we're examining those activities that relate to weather. Next, we will look at the interior savanna. The interior savannas of Guyana experience rainfall pattern that helps to determine the types of plant that can grow in that area. High temperature causes tropical vegetation and forests to grow well. Lack of moisture during the dry season results in grasslands and clumps becoming tough. In the dry season, in the interior savannas, the wetlands recede. So it means that water dries off of the wet areas in the interior savanna. And what happens? The land becomes parched, cracked. The land becomes parched and cracks open. Soils in the open savanna become affected by this type of dry, parched land. What happens? Nutrients are lost, and it means that farmers who do agricultural activities in the interior savanna suffer because their crops just do not grow well. So let's examine what happens in the savannas of the Rupununi. In the southern part of the Rupununi savannas, they experience remarkable wetlands, and as a result, the land becomes flooded. When that happens, farming is affected and also animal life because they have to migrate to higher lands or to a drier savanna. And that means that they can die as a result because some animals have young, and the young are usually weak and cannot go far distances with such type of wetlands. So boys and girls, as you would have listened, there are different types of weather-related activities that are experienced and practiced across the natural regions of Guyana. And what are those activities based on? The type of climate that each natural region experiences. So boys and girls, I just want to encourage you to keep safe, keep on learning, and I will see you next time when we meet again to do social studies. Goodbye, boys and girls.